What made you realize the relationship was over? When I got a Facebook message from another dude saying your wife is cheating on us. He thought we had one of those open relationships. Edit, this happened a little over 10 years ago. I got custody of the kid, I'm remarried, great job, new house, I'm doing good. And I also laugh about it when I think back on it. Wow. I had a similar situation happen, but it was with my girlfriend at the time. I've told the story on Reddit before, but basically, my dad lives in Boston and I visit him yearly. She didn't want to go with me, which is fine, but she was mad at me for going without her. I paid all the bills and she lived with me and was between jobs for the past 8 months. So I just said fuck it and went to see my dad. First day of the trip, I get a Facebook message from a dude telling me that my GF had invited him over and they had sex, and he went to look up her Instagram and saw pictures of us. He found my Facebook and sent me a heads up. I knew instantly that our faltering relationship of 5 years was over that instant. Thank God I had my dad there with me to give me his sage advice. What a good guy though to reach out to you. Real solid person. Probably not the most comfortable thing to do. I once Googled how do you know when a relationship is over, and the top suggestion was you Google it. When contempt enters the picture. Hard to explain what contempt is, but once it's there it is done for. There's nothing like having someone you had an amazing time just have disgust for anything you do. Oh, and the glare is deadly. Luckily by the time I got there, I already made up my mind and stopped playing her victim blaming. We both had rough lives, but you cut yourself to manipulate me. Yeah, contempt. Yeah, contempt is a great word for it. I find indifference to be another good one, because if you love, or hate something, at least you have a strong emotion towards that thing. When a person is indifferent towards you, it's just a void, nothingness, practically a non-existent thing in the form of a reaction. It can be pretty rough when someone ignores you, spaces out during sentences, or goes looking for someone new to replace you without saying a word with no explanation. Indifference cuts deep. My ex, who was a major control freak, worked for an attorney. As a tool to get her way, she would prepare divorce papers and bring them home. The third time she pulled this, I signed them and made her file them. Game over. I worked with a guy whose ex constantly threatened divorce. One time he told her that if she threatened it again he'd file himself. She did. He did. What are you gonna do, divorce me? Woman who was divorced. When her sister called me and said, "You're a really nice guy and I like you. Remember Jason? You do?" "Yeah, well, she's fucking him in the other room as we speak." That's pretty much when I knew. Props to her sister though, I hope you're okay. She did me a favor. Her sister was a bitch. He is a narcissist and there was a lot of mental and emotional abuse. Every year at our anniversary he would file for divorce thinking that it would put me back in line. That year he filed for divorce again and I was like, hey you do you, I don't care, and went about my life. He kept upping things and nothing affected me. So he thought taking away my independence was a good idea. I had a restraining order by midday the next day and was awarded the car. Watching him have to hand the keys over to the sheriff and find a ride from the police department was pretty funny, looking back on it now. Edit, adding additional info, I had to BS him into taking my daughter and I to the hospital that was near the courthouse, one we literally never went to. I told him our daughter's doctor said she needed to see a specialist there. He had his dog with him, so he dropped us off at the ER and ran to drop his dog off at his mom's. The ER checked us in, I explained what was going on and they kept us in a room in the back. When he came back, they told him she was in testing. ER was so busy they couldn't have more than one parent. He would text me and I would give him updates on what was going on with her treatment. The hospital called and paid for a taxi to take us to the courthouse. They snuck us through to a different entrance so we could leave without him seeing us. Huge shout out to the hospital. Got the restraining order, walked to the sheriff's department to get him served. Seeing a penis in her mouth. It wasn't mine. Came to say this, but it wasn't her mouth. Was it her refrigerator? When I realized that I couldn't make time for her while studying to pass the bar exam, she stopped taking her meds/seeing her therapist, and I also realized that I couldn't continue being her only emotional support and her boyfriend at once. I'm still trying fam, but I feel ya on this one. I'm basically playing the role of a therapist right now. It doesn't work, mate. You can't be a person's whole world. Get her to understand that or leave, otherwise, you're wasting your life on something that will only have bad consequences. Fuck, I love the woman but holy shit she doesn't have anything outside of our relationship and it's slowly suffocating me. We were only 3 months into the relationship and I was pretty happy with what we had, Until she asked me if we were together because we wanted to be, or if it was because we were afraid to be alone. We were very different people. She was super Christian, I'm an atheist. She was very talkative and optimistic, I'm quiet and fairly cynical. It was a relationship straight out of a sitcom. Obviously, we had very stark differences, but we had never had a bad argument because we knew how to communicate our feelings and viewpoints properly when we disagreed. But that question consumed me. I tried to convince myself otherwise, because I am not afraid to be alone, but I doubted that I would ever find someone as genuinely kind and caring as she was. She was the type of person who always put others before herself. She had some quirks I found annoying, but I tried to convince myself that they were endearing because I loved her. That question made me be honest with myself. I loved her and would never want to hurt her, but I was not in love with her. The spark I had felt at the beginning of the relationship fizzled out in 2 weeks after that question. We were eating at a restaurant after watching the new Thor movie and she was stirring her food, clearly deep in thought. I asked her what she was thinking about, and she said that she had missed me all week. We lived about 20 miles apart and were usually only able to see each other on the weekends, and was wondering if I had missed her. I just started crying without saying a word because I knew I had not, and knew she could tell as our conversations had been fairly dry for the last 2 weeks. She tried to salvage it by talking about my favorite audiobook series that she was listening to, but at that point, we both knew it was over. She deserves a lot better. Really sad but ironically one of the most wholesome stories here. So much abuse or many other guys schlong found in mouth or other hole. Hope you both got someone better. Edit, better for each other, you both seem genuinely nice people individually. We were supposed to see a marriage counselor together and he didn't make it. So there I am sitting with the therapist and she starts asking me questions about our relationship. The more I describe him the more interested she gets, till she's practically falling out of her chair at one point, she's leaning forward so much. She told me she was interested in having a one-on-one session with him. I left kind of confused because she seemed so much more interested in him than me. The next time I went to the appointment she straight up told me that she believed he was a malignant narcissist. That he did not have a conscience and that he actually enjoyed causing me pain. Once she said that it was like a light went off in my head. Because all this time I thought it was me. I thought something was wrong with me and that's why he didn't love me. When she told me that he had a personality disorder I suddenly understood. There was nothing wrong with me. There was something wrong with him. It was crazy because it's literally like I fell out of love with him overnight. And I was with him from the ages of 15 to 25. That therapist sounds wonderful and on the ball. I'm sorry you had to go through that and I'm so glad you got out. I'm really sorry that happened to you, but I'm also laughing my head off at the idea of the therapist who was like, ooh, a real-life malignant narcissist, how interesting. I plugged my ex's old phone in, we were married at the time, so I could factory restore it and let the kids use it for Netflix or whatever. She was still signed into Facebook. Immediately I got a live feed of her conversation with another dude. I saw a message that included "sucked you off," and that pretty much did it. On top of the fact that this was going on for like 9 months, and she painted a picture that she was a single mom with a deadbeat baby daddy. Fed the kids, waited for her to come home, tucked them in and confronted her. I'm sick just thinking about it. Almost 4 years ago and it still hurts. I was misdiagnosed with stomach cancer. Was going in to get scoped the next morning. I was scared to death. Told my wife when she got home that she would need to take me the next morning. But I don't want to miss work, she said. That's the exact moment I knew my marriage was done. She disappeared right after I started taking meds. Hallucination girls are the worst.